Hi, Gordon. So great to see you, obviously virtually, although it looks like you're at a lovely golf course somewhere with a nice, big, expensive lens over your right shoulder. So you're
Yes.
looking great. So we can only wish and dream of those days, right?
Exactly. That's sort of why I picked this background. I was just going to use my office, and I thought about it, and I said, you know something, this makes a nice, pleasing image for our industry, something we can hope we can get back to.
It's aspirational at this point.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
how are things? I mean, obviously, you guys have had a couple calls with some new products that have come out this year. So, before we get into your overview, just in general, what's your sense of when you're talking to people still, as far as what your customers are saying and what you're hearing out there?
Yeah. We're keeping in close contact with everybody that we can. As you well know, Ken, because you attended it, we did a virtual press conference to announce the not only products but technologies that we're bringing to bear. And, we're trying to reach out to all of our customers, making presentations to those that like them, offering any help that we can offer at this point. We do really not only worry about our own employees, but we worry about all of our customers too. So as we go through this, but as you and I were previously discussing, let's hope that later in this summer or later in the fall, we can get back to real sports.
Sure, sure. So let's take a look at some of the new developments. You want to fire up your?
Sure. So basically, what was going to be this NAB, and we're so sorry we couldn't have done this in person with everybody, is introduction of some new product, as everybody's doing, but also introduction of new technologies that we hope will aid possibly in the COVID times and certainly afterwards. So one point that's kind of interesting that I wanted to make was that 4K, there are currently 15 models already in our line. We actually have more models in our 4K line than we do in our HD line right now.
Oh,
That's an incredible change that happened over just a short number of years. And one thing about 4K, we call them 4K lenses. They're marked as UA, but of course they're at home on HD cameras and HD applications too. But the advancements have moved very, very quickly in 4K. So one of the technologies that we want to talk about, it's both a product and a technology, is advanced focus. Many people may remember that our company and our main competitor in broadcast had brought out autofocus systems in the past. In the case of Fuji, we were known as precision focus, PF. It is a completely new technology. It's not related in any way to what we did in PF before. It's currently in our new UA 107 by 8.4 AF lens. It's the brother lens to our standard 107. People may ask down the road, are we planning on putting this in other lenses? Yes, I think we will do that. We need to bring the autofocus technology to the market first, see what the market wants, that type of thing. And we've already done several demos. And where this has come from, kind of interestingly, is some of our history. So 1934, Fujifilm started building glass. Believe it or not, the first computer used in lens design was actually used in 1956. AF technology was shown in 1996 as an early technology at NAB. It was never put into a product at that point. Precision focus came out in 2003. We got an Emmy for it in 2009. Of course, 4K starts heavily in 2015, and now advanced focus in 2020. So this is an evolutionary process for us. And very quickly, it is what's called a phase detection system. That is the big difference between what we did a number of years ago with PF and now. The phase detection system basically siphons off about 1/3 of an f-stop. It sends it through what we call separator lens onto a CMOS sensor that is in the lens, mounted in the lens, where we can separate that image into 4 separate images. And what this system allows us to do that's so different from PF and any other system that's existed, and this is the only one in 4K, is a very fast response rate, much faster than ever existed in the past. increased stability and accuracy. And what we mean by that is that the previous systems had some overshoot. So as it was finding focus, it would wobble a little bit, possibly. It won't do that anymore. This system is very accurate, very stable, and very fast. The other thing that it does, which is kind of interesting, is it has what we call an improved defocus detection. Basically, you could be far enough out of focus with precision focus in the past that it actually wouldn't see enough of an image to be able to decide what to do about focus. So you'd actually have to bring it slightly back into focus again before it would actually grab it and focus it. That won't happen now with the new advanced focus technology. We can bring completely defocused images now with basically a snap of the fingers into focus. So much different from previous technologies. One of the things that we're looking to do is more demos. We up till now have done a really great demo that went to air with a rodeo in Fort Worth, Texas. We also did a great demo with Michigan State University for one of their basketball games, where we used student operators who had no knowledge of really how to operate these things, and did great. So basically, you'll see in the picture here that there's a white box around that little station that's there. That box can be moved. That box can be enlarged. That box is basically where the AF will focus on. But you can put that box anywhere you want, in any size you want. But then people have asked, well, what about, keeping something in focus that's moving around the screen, since the box isn't going to move around with it? We've also invented what we're calling tracking sensitivity. Tracking sensitivity, basically, we can lock with a box, let's say in this case, onto a soccer player, and then using the sensitivity algorithms that have been designed into the lens, we can actually have it not refocused. For example, in the lower left pictures, you'll see that a referee walks in front of the player. Okay, we can actually have it not pay attention to that referee and stay on the player. So this is a really big advancement in autofocus, because now otherwise the focus isn't bouncing all over every time something new enters the frame.
Right.
So wanted people to see that. It works beautifully. It's an algorithm we just came up with. The other new product this year is our 125 times lens. We actually sort of previewed it a little bit last year under glass, but saying that it's a coming product. We did bring it to market, had the Olympics unfortunately not been postponed. We would have had them at the Olympics, and we are certainly moving ahead with demoing them. We will move ahead with demoing them and selling them here. We do already have one sale here, and we think this is going to be spectacular. One of the things that's very interesting about this lens is that it's not just the most telephoto. As a matter of fact, it's not. It matches our competitor's lens at 1,000 millimeters, but it starts at 8 millimeters. So this is not only the biggest zoom ratio, but the widest angle lens available. This is the widest sports field lens, entertainment lens that's ever been produced. Previous lenses were in the 9.5, 8.8 range. When we did the 107, we got to 8.4. So now we're down to 8 millimeters. So 8 to 1,000 millimeters. Rather amazing. 5% wider than our 107, 11% longer than our 107. All at just a slightly increased weight. This lens, we think, is it's going to be sort of a niche product. It's not going to be for every application, but there's certainly big events, Super Bowls, Olympics, golf. I think the 125 is going to find its market along with our 107 and our 107 AF, our 70, and so on. Just a little bit of an example. Unfortunately, Corona hit right when we were going to do this test, and we were going to do it in the stadium. So here we are at an empty soccer pitch in Japan. But we wanted to just show you the little bit of a difference that 900 to 1,000 millimeters can make. So here's a good example of that. It's quite impressive. But it's also very impressive as to what can be done on the wide side.
Right.
The difference between 8.4 and 8, you can see the red sign on the lower graphic that is not visible in the upper graphic. So even just 0.4 of a millimeter is very visible, extremely visible. So as you can imagine, if you were to compare this against our 8.8 or our 9.5 wide lenses, dramatically wider, allowing the director and the producer to have the shots that they want. The other thing that we did with the 125 is we've actually come up with a next generation stabilization system. I'm not going to put any video up here, but we do have an interesting video if any of our sports community would like to see it, showing the differences between how the stabilizer has worked up till now, which is, I think we're on our 7th or 8th version already on the stabilizer, but we've taken the next step and improved it once again. We are also introducing a technology called remote back focus. This is something that we designed in collaboration with Sony. And basically, with the current system, as anybody that works in the field knows, camera operator has to be on camera. He's on headset with the video operator in the truck. And together, the camera operator moves the back focus until the video operator believes that back focus is set correctly. Well, we're going to have a little bit of a change for that, because in a stadium application like this one, that works very well. But when we add things like cranes or helicopters or sky cams, you can't get to those lenses easily. And if right before a game back focus is out or something like that, you're in trouble. So from now, we can actually do this remotely from inside the control room or inside the remote truck, using Sony's remote control panel, RCP. There's new firmware from Sony and firmware from us that allows the menu now to have a back focus control from the RCP. And the video operator, as long as the camera is pointed somewhere that you can set the back focus from, the video operator in the truck can zoom in, do front focus, zoom back out, reset the back focus, and then double check it and lock everything down. It can all be done now remotely because of a system that we have called a floating back focus system, where we have a motor in there. The motor has actually been there for a while because we use that for very minute adjustments to overall focus. The computer in the lens actually uses that already. So we're just taking advantage of that, and it's a cooperation between us and Sony. Here's a close-up of the RCP showing the back focus function. Not all Sony cameras will be able to do this, but any of the 4K cameras either are or will be soon capable of it. And the same for all of our lenses that have the floating back focus in them, such as our box lenses, 125, 107, 80, 70, 27. Large number, our portable lenses, all are able to do this. And then ARIA, which is a technology that actually was a Sony Canon collaboration, but we've also been invited into being able to use this. And I actually keep saying I want to have a test after we do these presentations as to what ARIA means, because I can't even remember it. But it's automatic restoration of illumination attenuation. And our friends at Sony named this, and it provides two fantastic new capabilities. One is using the gain of the camera and the communication between the camera and the lens. As the lens would normally start to ramp, need more light, so the video operator in the truck would actually be opening the iris. Instead of doing that, you can allow the camera to increase gain incrementally, very small amounts, to always keep the iris from changing and to keep the image from getting darker. So some video operators might say, well, I don't want to have more than 3 dB gain or 6 dB of gain put in. You can set that in the menu on the remote control panel as to how much you want. But this way, with the iris not moving, the depth of field doesn't change, which is a nice thing about this. And it's just automatic. It happens automatically. So you will not see ramping happen. The other is that all lenses by every manufacturer since the beginning of time are brighter in the center than they are on the edges. Probably the only time you'd see this is a condition like we show on the bottom here where we're shooting a white wall, but you could actually see that the corners may be a little bit darker than the center. This is normal. ARIA can also correct this and have the exact flat illumination right across the image. So interesting technology. Here's another image of it showing also with a waveform monitor. So you can very much see it in the waveform monitor. Great technology, great job on Sony's and Canon's part, and we're happy to be able to take part in this. Again, many cameras, many lenses are capable of doing this. And if anybody has any questions, we're more than happy to be able to explain it. The last thing, Ken, I wanted to go through was 8K. And why is 8K important? Well, it would have been more important for the Olympics, of course, and it will be important a year from now. But a lot of work has been done by lens companies, camera manufacturers to get 8K ready for the Olympics. We had previously built what we call PL, or the cine mount type lenses for several camera manufacturers' cameras, which were limited in zoom range by the fact of the large single sensor in the camera, as opposed to a normal 3-sensor broadcast style camera. So for example, you'll see a 20 by 35 there. And by the way, these numbers are because of the large sensor, the 35 part. It's only a 20:1 and it's a full-size box lens. That's coming from the large sensor size in the camera. So there were limitations. Well, again, our friends at Sony have developed a 3-sensor, 1.25-inch sensor camera. I believe it's called the 8300. And we're now already having 2 lenses that were designed for it, 2 box lenses, only a 7.5 and an 11 times zoom. But now we're also introducing the world's first really truly long 8K lens. And 8K, when we say 8K, we mean center to the edge. It's a 66 times zoom ratio. It will zoom from 15.2 to 1,000 millimeters. Because this is a larger sensor than would be typically used today in a 2/3 inch camera, that's an equivalent of 9 to 595 millimeters. So it's got the basic wide angle of today's 4K and HD cameras and lenses, but it's got a 600 millimeter on the long end, by far the longest 8K lens ever made. Availability, as I said, was summer 2020. The expectation was Olympics, as you can imagine. And then the other lens is what looks like a very normal wide angle portable lens, except it's an 8K lens. Again, a 12 times zoom ratio, 7.6 to 91. 7.6 is actually quite wide because, again, in a 2/3 inch equivalency, it's a 4.5 to 54. So again, available this summer. So kind of interestingly, as we're still filling out the 4K line of lenses, we're also doing the same thing in 8K. In this country, I'm sure we'll be further behind than domestically in Japan and China, but they're there, and the technology is there to produce these. So with that being said, you know, that's sort of what we're currently up to right now, and you know, we'd like to, you know, move ahead, and we hope for the day soon when we can actually demonstrate a lot of this to people.
Yeah, sure, indeed. So real quick, as a follow-up, you know, obviously a lot of those technologies that you've introduced are really good for things like remote applications and at home and REMI and at home run. So what do you see as the, you know, do you think that those, but sometimes those features have been, I don't want to say poo-pooed, but, you know, camera people are very specific creatures who love the art and the craft and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Do you think that this is gonna, the current situation is gonna kind of exacerbate the need for these sort of features like autofocus, also the remote back focus and all these kind of things?
Yeah, we definitely think so. You know, there's going to be a change in thinking, you know, and we want to be ready for that. You know, autofocus or advanced focus in our case, you know, honestly, it's a bit of a hard sell. You know, camera operators are very good at what they do,
Right.
and they've adapted to 4K very well. 8K may be a different story, and advanced focus there would be really helpful. And I do think it's still helpful even today, not only for camera operators on manned cameras, but as you mentioned, even unmanned cameras. I think that it could really be a big advantage there. RBF, absolutely, because to be honest with you, the video operator could be sitting in Bristol or LA or New York and setting back focus remotely in a stadium somewhere.
Right.
So definitely some of these technologies can be used.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for your time. Stay safe. We'll see you on the golf course soon somewhere, either playing or just watching.
Thank you, Ken. We'll talk soon.